sees the means of production, and the like and subscribe button.
We've been covering this case for 2 months, really for more than a year at this point in time. We are seeing about the actual verdict here. And just for the I want to understand, count 1 was the most serious charge, carrying up to a life sentence. He has been found not guilty of racketeering conspiracy RICO, not guilty. He has also been found not guilty of trafficking of Cassandra Ventura. She testified for days. We're also learning that he has been found guilty of the transportation to engage in prostitution count involving Cassie Ventura. He has been found not guilty of trafficking of Jane, who is the girlfriend that he was dating as well, and guilty of the transportation to engage in prostitution. Now,
so it seems like they got him guilty on some of the minor charges, no pun intended, but not on the big trafficking ones. My understanding is that the evidence against him was overwhelming, which does kind of which I think gives the impression this is like another well-connected, wealthy Hollywood people just get away with a lot of bad shit. You know, like just the same as like this, the same thing always happens. It happened with OJ. It happened to a large extent, right, with Weinstein. You know, but isn't he's still going to jail for a while? He's still being convicted on felony charges.
Elizabeth, this is very, very significant. We had an inkling yesterday when there was a hung jury on the.
They're also likely to let him post bond and just get out free. I don't think he's being given bond. Somebody in chat just said that he literally was just denied bond.
RICO charge, the most serious, that there might be an actual acquittal there or a hung jury. The prosecution insisted on having it keep going. The defense wanted it to keep going. And now we know they have a result. It is.
Yeah, denied bail. What the f is this? Court sketch shows Sean Diddy Combs reacting after verdicts are read in New York on Wednesday. He crawled under the table and he took a nap on the chair, on the stinky courtroom butt chair. He freaky. Yeah, that's true. He's popping it out a little bit. He has been denied bail decision, cleared of trafficking and racketeering charges that could have behind bars for life, but found guilty of lesser prostitution related offenses. The verdict is a blow to prosecutors who said the music mogul used violence and fear to abuse women, and overall a win for the disgraced star. Outside the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan, dozens of Combs' supporters gathered after the verdict was delivered. Many chanted his name and cheered as several members of his family exited the building following the announcement. "Let Puffy go," some supporters chanted, putting their fists in the air. "Not guilty," others shouted. Music filled the air as supporters played Diddy Free, a track released by King Combs and Kanye West, who briefly came to support Combs in court during the trial. That's great. The crowd outside the courthouse danced and celebrated, with some handing out bottles of baby oil and lathering themselves in it. RICO is not a RICO. All right. Interesting stuff. Really fascinating stuff there. Thank you.
Is a not guilty verdict. Talk to me more broadly here, because the Prostitution Acts, people thought it was kind of a low-hanging fruit. He was found guilty of those, but not trafficking of Cassie.
This is the best possible outcome for the defense. This is what, of course they wanted a full acquittal, but if you're not getting a full acquittal, this is what they wanted. Their client is now not facing life in prison. He is facing 2 separate charges that he was convicted on. Serious charges. They each carry a maximum of 10 years. So this isn't nothing that we are talking about, but the most serious charges he has been acquitted on. As Laura said, days of testimony from Cassie Ventura, from Jane, Cassie being on the stand for 4 days, Jane being on the stand for 6 days, these women crying, breaking down on the stand. Well, guess what? The jury did not believe most of their story, or even if they believed most of their story, it did not line up with the...
I think over-policing in black communities has created an environment where the counter-reaction can mean dismissing victims because you assume any black man's being unfairly convicted. I'm gonna lose brother points for this one, but yeah, 100%. You saw the same thing with OJ too. Like, there are black people who will reflexively defend any other black person convicted or accused of any charges. But I don't think that explains the jury's behavior, you know? I think that more explains kind of like a broader discussion, you know? You saw with Eric Adams. Well, yeah, you did. Yeah, you did, for sure. And Eric Adams still takes advantage of it, disinvited to the cookout. Do we know the makeup of the jury? I'm not insinuating that the jury was biased by their race. I don't know that. I have no evidence to support that. I'm talking about broader, like, discourse, broader community reaction. I have no idea why the jury ruled why they did. It was mostly male jurors. Of course, women can't understand this stuff.
Those charges. So,
and by the way, on that point, let's talk a little bit about that, because there was an inkling for those people who had been in the courtroom, including ourselves, who had been watching the testimony. Remember what they were using as the defense to counter the sex trafficking. It was free will. They were talking about free will, and they were suggesting, while the prosecution said any bait and switch or manipulation to coerce these women by fraud or threat or otherwise to engage in these so-called freak-offs, that force, that cloud of force and threat and violence that had hung over the head of Cassie Ventura was enough to suggest that she never could develop the free will to say no. And when it came to Jane, the idea of manipulating her to travel to places like New York under the pretenses of quality time and shopping, only to then engage in freak-offs, was enough of manipulation. Well, the defense, was very clear. They kept saying free will. These are grown women making grown-up decisions who have an interest in engaging in this behavior. It seems that the jurors, maybe looking at text messages or testimony, agree.
By the way, to be clear, I just want to be clear really quick, because I don't want to be misconstrued, okay? White people also reflexively defend white people. I think there might be a greater proportional bias in the black community towards in-group defense relative to how progressive they are in their voting tendencies. Like for instance, white people tend to vote for white presidential candidates, but black people overwhelmingly voted for Obama or Kamala Harris. Though there are other underlying biases there. There's like a sort of like a underlying motivating factors to that. Math is complicated. What's most important is that you not be racist.
With that sentiment.
Absolutely, and we were just talking about some of those text messages that came in, and let's dig into them a little bit deeper. As I said, nothing about this is black and white. I have covered many high-profile crimes cases with famous defendants, and the concept of consent can be very hard for a jury to understand, especially when
that's especially a male jury.
You have text messages that say, I want to do this freak off. Now, again, these women on the stand said that they texted those things to simply placate Sean Combs because they were scared of him. Because especially in Cassie Ventura's case, remember, this is a woman who was physically beaten. Our team got that on video, and the jury saw that numerous times.
By the way, the jury is leaving the courtroom right now. Their job is done now. Civic duty done. They have been there for 7 weeks, and they just left the courtroom.
This is, I mean, really, it is a stunning turn of events. It's a quick deliberation. I mean, a quick turn of events from yesterday when they were deadlocked. But also remember, this is the beginning of day 3. This jury reached a verdict in under 15 hours after hearing 2 months of testimony. So really a stunning outcome. Again,
in my eyes, the court here is upholding rape culture. Yeah, I didn't follow the proceedings very much at all, but my understanding is that the evidence against Diddy here was pretty compelling, pretty goddamn compelling. And for the lesser charges to be affirmed, but the big ones to be for him to be acquitted on, suggests to me, I don't know. I can't really comment on that.
Would anticipate that the defense is quite happy right now, but Sean Combs will still be serving prison time.
Yes.
These are still 2 charges that each carry 10 years. Now, Laura, I actually want to hear, as a former federal prosecutor, how much time, and you may not want to make this prediction, but how much of that time do you anticipate that he would serve? What do you think that the judge may sentence him at with each of these charges carrying 10 years each?
A great question. First, let me just dab the sweat off my brow, because let me tell you something. I was sprinting from the court trying to get here for this moment because I was so eager to understand what the actual verdict would be that I'm literally doing an affair to remember sprint through the streets of Manhattan trying to get here. And on the way, people were asking, is there a verdict? Through the streets of Manhattan. That's how people have been viewing this particular case. And here's the thing. After almost 8 weeks, the SDNY has a success rate of conviction of over 90%. It's actually over, I think, 95%. So think, the resources that are being used in this case, more than what? It was 6 prosecutors, including...
It really does suck that the Me Too movement, like, completely failed, unfortunately. Like, was already illegal, but the effort was to normalize a culture of believing victims, which unfortunately just did not happen. Like right-wing media dogpiled, and the issue got kind of dropped. And now, like, our current sitting president lost a civil case about assault and then immediately went to run the presidency. So yeah, there's been a backlash. Now you know you have more guys than ever, despite the fact that false accusations are incredibly rare relative to rape. You've got a bunch of guys who are like, yeah, you got to be careful with a female because, like, if you have sex and later she regrets it, she could accuse you of raping her. It doesn't happen. I mean, it can happen, but it doesn't happen any more than other false accusation crimes, like false accusations of murder or battery. It can happen. It's just like anything can happen. I don't know. Come on. Cons are with Diddy, Eliza Lee. Cons are ideologically.
Maureen Comey, a top prosecutor in the SDNY who handled Ghislaine Maxwell and other infamous cases as well. For almost 8 weeks, the devotion of resources and time and energy and cost resulting in prostitution-related charges. Now, that might be a black eye if people are thinking about the rate of conviction, but they believed in their case, and now they'll go forward knowing that the jury, who they must respect, has found only this one. But here's the thing, 10 years is possible, but for a first-time offender of any crime like this, it could be.
If you accuse someone of rape and are lying, you should get prison time that your would-be rapist would have gotten. Dog, quit letting your fear of women get pressed on you by people on the internet, okay? This is not a real problem. This is like 12-year-old posting, okay? This shit goes hard in the playground. Rape is like really common. You really want it, so how do you determine if a rape accusation is false? Like if they fail to convict, and then the woman who was raped gets 30 years or whatever? No, I don't think so. If it's found that you've lied in a police report, which is what a false rape accusation is, that's already a crime. You can already go to jail for that. You have to proportion your response to this stuff in relation to the evidence of the problem. Like, are sharks scary? Yes. How much money should we dedicate to preventing shark attacks? Probably not that much because they don't happen that often. Rape happens. Statistically speaking, since I've started this sentence, someone watching has been raped. Okay? Shit is so common. If you talk to women, I know tough for many of you, but one day you'll get there. A lot of them have stories. Them or a friend, someone they're close to, maybe like an almost incident. Shit, really common. Really, 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 really common. False rape accusations? Oh yeah, I've heard a few stories on the internet. I'm just saying, like, you gotta proportion your response to this line the problem. It's a serious problem. I know some people might get mad at me for this one, but I mean it. Is bad. You gotta. A lot of guys don't get this because women don't talk about it because women are kind of educated not to trust guys with this information, which is fair because a lot of guys, like a woman will tell a guy a story of her being raped when she was 16, and the guy will think for a second and say, "Well, was his dick bigger than mine?" Like, it's a lot of guys are psychopaths on the topic, so women don't talk about it, and then you get the problem, you know?
As little as 2 years in prison as well. Now, they could run consecutively, meaning back to back as opposed to concurrently, but that is something that we're not talking about the maximum per se, and this judge will have discretion. Here's what will happen now. He will set a sentencing date. He will have a probation report that is coming up, and over this probation report, he is going to essentially figure out issues of remorse and recidivism, which is a fancy way of saying, will they commit the crime again? He'll look at the different factors that are in play for sentencing guidelines. This is federal court, and he will draw a conclusion on that. He will not walk out a free man today at all, but he knows